Let me wrap my arms around you. I wanna hold you and keep you warm. Sometimes I feel like I'm drowning. I can't keep my head above the water. I gasp for air but feel only the cold grey water, making me heavy, dragging me down, dragging me down. Let me wrap my arms around you. Let me keep you from getting cold. Let me wrap my arms around you. I'm in love with the feeling of being in love. Love with the feeling of being in love.
Sometimes I feel like I'm drowning. I can't keep my head above the water. I'm not sure if someone up there is pushing me under, or if it's just that I don't have the strength to stay above the waves that keep washing over me. I gasp for air, but feel only the rush of cold, gray, salt water. It fills my lungs, making me heavy, dragging me down. I'm in love with the feeling of being in love. Let me wrap my arms around you. I will be the dense, soft fog that moves quietly up behind you and envelops you in its thick, soft blanket. Dive down and I will close around you and save you from all harm. Let me be your buffer from the world. Let me wrap my arms around you. There's something that I can't remember. A block of time in which my mind is blank. When I was 23, I had an operation and almost died. I remember the sensation of drowning when I came out of the anesthetic. Each breath required enormous effort. At the time, I hoped that I had died.
Daydreaming, eh? That's better than night dreaming. Why is this coming up now? Haven't you thought about it before? I mean, that was 15 years ago.
Yes and no. I guess I blocked it out. Now these nightmares. I can't sleep at all anymore.
You know, I can't see why you were attracted to a guy like that.
I was young. And he was very charming. I really wanted him. He was going out with another woman at the time. But I made her think that he was fooling around with me, so she dropped him.
So much for sisterhood. You know, you have no right to blame him for what happened.
Blame him? I blame myself. I was so much in love, I would have done anything. I would have gone anywhere. Everything was so different. It seemed so exotic. I learned to skin a caribou and to tan the hide. One of the women gave me my first ulu, a woman's knife. And I spent days sitting with that smelly caribou hide, scraping and scraping it, until it was soft and white. I cut it up and made a very large parka with fox fur around the hood. The skin wasn't as supple as the elderly women could make it by chewing it with their teeth. But that parka kept me warm for the coldest year of my life. I miss you when you're not here. I long to have you near me. Sometimes when I'm without you on a quiet Sunday afternoon, I lie in bed and imagine you beside me. It warms me to think of your fingers running down my flesh, to feel your cheeks against my thighs, your tongue across my lips.
Layla, everyone has a past and dreams, and lots of us are haunted by them. But we don't let them take over our lives.
But I'm starting to remember more about the operation. I think I understand why I'm having these nightmares about drowning. My mom told me that they put me in ice water when my heart stopped.
I could not bear to be away from him for even a moment. My thoughts were of him all the time. I would automatically answer when he spoke to me, as if in a trance, knowing I had within me the secret knowledge of his being. I could not bear to have him out of my sight. I loved the way he would take control of the situation, the arrogant manner in which he sat with his head to one side, listening. I wanted to be near him, to watch him talk, move, sleep. I was addicted.
Never looked back. I didn't want to think about you. To have your image always in front of me. When everything broke down, it was just too difficult. I couldn't think. I couldn't breathe. The darkness closed in on me. It made me suffocate. We had such a great beginning. Everything fit. And things changed. We went away together. May as well have gone to the moon.
There is an old Inuit legend that tells of how the Kabluna, or white men, came to be. There once was a man who became very angry when he caught his young daughter mating with a dog. Throwing both culprits into a boat, he piloted them to a small island and left them to their fate. If you wish to mate with a dog, so be it. Years later, he felt remorse and a need to see his only offspring. Returning to the island, he discovered that his daughter and the dog had become the parents of a brood of tall, fair-skinned people with hairy faces and bushy eyebrows. The father did not stop at the island, but only drove by in his boat. Looking out to sea, his daughter saw him and was filled with longing for her home. Diving into the cold water, she swam to the boat and tried to climb in. Her father pushed her off, but she clung to the edge. In desperation, he took up his axe and cut off her fingers, so she fell down into the sea. Into the murky depths she sank, and when she arose, it was as Esna, goddess of the sea. The tips of her fingers became the fishes and creatures of the sea, the walrus, the seals, and the whales. The children with the dog remained on the island, and later became known as the Kabluna, or white men.
I still don't see the connection between being up there and what eventually happened.
Well, maybe there isn't one. But I know if we'd stayed here, we'd be married by now and have a station wagon and 2.2 kids.
Sometimes several families would go off together to hunt or fish. We would spread across the tundra in a long line of skidoos, dragging the wooden sleds called komatiks behind. We would go for 2 days at a time, sometimes longer, and build an igloo to sleep in overnight. I was surprised at how warm it would be in the igloo. A tiny fire kept the space comfortable. We would brew tea and make bannock from flour and baking powder. Dogs were not pets in the north. Often they were wild wolves that had been caught and set in harness. Dogs were kept chained outside the houses of the hamlet. They were fierce and vicious. They were known to maim and even eat small children who wandered too close. When stumbling home in the dark or in a bad snowstorm, one always had to remember the position of each dog in town.
What was it like up there? Did people accept you?
Funny. The natives more than the non. Most of the whites worked for the government. I was one of the few who worked for the co-op. I was starting to learn Inuktitut. That was always good for a laugh from someone.
The Inuit kids all thought white people were so exotic that they could never produce anything as ordinary as shit. There were no flush toilets in Rankin Inlet, so the disposal of bodily wastes was a topic of much discussion. It could not be burned, buried, or otherwise gotten rid of. Each house had a bucket with a thick plastic bag in it. As the contents neared the top of the bag, it was removed and replaced. Trucks, we call them honey trucks, came round twice a week to collect the bags and spill them onto the other side of the garbage dump. Small Inuit children often came laughing and giggling into my house to check the contents of the bucket in the bathroom, never quite believing what it held. There was only one store in town, the infamous Hudson's Bay. It stocked the oddest assortment of items I could ever have imagined. Rather than responding to the needs of the community, they sent everything which had been deemed unsaleable in the rest of Canada to this little outpost. One might, at any given time, find such oddities as canned stuffed mushrooms, sequined halter tops, and plastic open-toed stiletto pumps. All I could think about was food. We missed the sea lift. That was the big barge that came in once a year. There was only 1 week when the lake and bay were ice-free and the barge could make it through. White people would order everything that they were going to eat for 1 full year. The thought of what to have for dinner that evening was beyond me, never mind for the next 365 days. I lay in bed and hallucinated. Ice cream, chocolate, banana splits, salads, apples. I could taste each texture, savor each sensation. The Hudson's Bay would fly in a few fruits or vegetables once every 2 weeks, but the quality of the produce was less than edible, and the prices exorbitant. And so I hunted and I cooked. We caught caribou for both ourselves and the dogs. This was alternated with Arctic char and the odd rabbit or ptarmigan. I grew to hate caribou. I roasted it, I fried it with bacon, I stewed it. I tried every disguise I could think of. I stopped eating.
Perhaps you should have gone to see a doctor.
There was no doctor. Once a month, one would fly in to see all the old people with tuberculosis and the little kids with runny noses. I went to see the nurse. She was nice, but overworked. You need more fiber in your diet, she told me. I knew that there was something really wrong.
One of the men went fishing up the Thelon River. He took his 5-year-old daughter with him for company. On the way back to the hamlet, there was a very bad storm. The man drove the skidoo while his daughter sat on the komatik behind him. The storm became worse, and he could not see for the driving snow around him. Stopping the skidoo, he went back to find that his little daughter had fallen off. It was dark, and the whiteout made it impossible for him to see. He called and called. The next day, he went back to try to find her. The land all looks the same. It makes no difference if it's day or night. It all looks the same.
My arms around you. I want to hold you, hold you, hold you, and keep you warm, and keep you warm.
All he ever did was work or go out hunting with his friends.
Didn't he still love you?
I'm not sure anymore.
He had no time for me. I was alone. There was no one to talk to. To make a phone call outside of Rankin, you had to go by satellite. And the pause between speaking and your voice reaching the other end was unnerving. There was no communication with anyone from the outside. We were in a little part of the world all alone. Everything outside of Rankin Inlet had been bombed. Everyone else was gone. We were the last people left on the earth. My parents were gone. My best friend was gone. There was nothing left. The first time I ever killed anything was out on the land. The men had gone off to catch caribou and left me alone on the tundra. I had practiced hitting cans at the garbage dump and felt good enough to hit a live target. There were small white birds called ptarmigan feeding in the hills, and these were my prey. In retrospect, I should have chosen a much larger target. My first shot hit one in midair. It fell to the ground, not dead, but wounded in one wing. The poor bird began to run crazily in circles, veering from side to side. I froze. My hands began to sweat. The bird continued to flutter wildly and to bleed profusely. I shot bullets into the snow in vain. Caught up in the excitement, Hiku, my dog, grabbed the ptarmigan and started to shake it viciously. Not knowing what else to do, I ran at her, screaming. She dropped the bird. Flipping my rifle, I smashed the butt down on its head again and again, grinding it into the ground. That was my first kill. It was dark. There was no day or night. I began to sleep. I would spend more and more time in bed in a state of semi-consciousness, and I would dream. I didn't bother to get up anymore. It was dark outside anyway. I would read and reread the few books I had brought with me. In one book, I read about the parasites which lived inside the caribou. Warblefly larvae. They sat beneath the hide of the animal. When a carcass was being flayed, children would gather around and fight over who got to eat them. In my dreams, the warblefly larvae were deep inside my body. How could they not be? I had been eating nothing but caribou for 5 months. These bugs would swarm around inside me until one day they reached the brims of my eyelids. Here they crawled out into the daylight. Masses of them would swarm over my eyes like amoeba, blinding me. I was terrorized. It was all a dream, but still I wonder, are they there now? Is my body full of them? Will I erupt with a teeming mass of them one day? But then, it was only a dream. He didn't understand anything. The space grew bigger. I hated being near him. I hated his touch. He talked incessantly about himself. There was no us. Problems with the job, dealings with people. He could never agree with them. He was arrogant, egotistical. I was alone.
I know some people find it hard to be alone, but I like it. Well, I really wanted to be with him. My heart just ached. Then my stomach started to ache. So why didn't you leave? What was keeping you there? I didn't care about the rest of the world anymore.
I'm standing on a snowbank, and I know that the ground beneath me is no longer white. Red poison seeps out between my legs. I don't care if everyone looks at me strangely. They don't know me. They don't love me.
Hurt when I walked. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. I started to faint. Did it ever occur to you that it might be psychosomatic? That's exactly what he said.
How can you treat me like this? It hurts me. I know that you don't love me anymore. I want you to suffer, to feel my pain. I'm gonna die anyway. I want you to die with me. How could you possibly understand? What you know nothing about is how good it feels to be so much in love that you eat and breathe and sleep for someone else.
But if you loved him so much, how could you leave without ever making a phone call or writing a letter? I mean, aren't you curious? Or is it that you're afraid you wouldn't be in control? That those feelings are still there?
Some of those feelings are still there. And I'm glad they are. But it could never be the same again. No, I'm not afraid. I could call him right now.
Then do it. Pick up the phone.
nothing to say to him. It was over long ago.